Let's take a look at the winners and the losers at CPAC. And did the Obama administration threaten to shoot down the military jets of the Israeli Air Force? A lot to talk about. I'm Randall Terry. This is Voice of Resistance.
Those who forsake the law praise the wicked. Those who uphold the law resist them. Welcome to the Voice of Resistance. Here's your host, Randall Terry.
It's not half as debauched or as tantalizing or as glamorous as a French runway showing off new clothing designs, but it is something. I'm talking, of course, about CPAC, where people who want to be at least considered by conservatives for the Republican nomination for president, they come once a year. CPAC is a fairly large gathering. I spoke there a few years back, and about 3,000 people attend every year. A lot of young people this year. The conservative PAC, okay? It is kind of the who's who of the secular conservative world, with a little bit of the mix of the religious right, but not much, okay? Sean Hannity was there interviewing a lot of the potential candidates, and I listened to a lot of their speeches, heard a lot of words. I thought, frankly, it was a good event. I want to go over quickly with you who won the straw poll. Now, before I do this, remember, Ron Paul, Rand Paul's dad, Ron Paul won the straw poll here for president twice prior to his run in 2012. And if my memory serves me correct, he did not win a single primary in the Republican process for the nomination for president. So this is an important indicator of where the conservative wing of the Republican Party stands, but it is not an indicator that shows the breadth and the depth of the Republican Party nationwide. And if my memory is correct, the current leader in the polls is Governor Walker. It was Rand Paul a few months ago, but now it's Governor Walker. But I digress. Let's go to the CPAC straw poll. First place, Senator Rand Paul with 25.7%. He is down a few points from last year. He won last year's as well, but he did what he needed to do. He came in, he spoke forcefully, people liked what he had to say, and they again gave him first place in a straw poll. A lot of young people there. And by the way, did you notice how he's dressing on the campaign trail? Jeans, open collar, very hip look. Believe me, they think through every single element of this. It'll be interesting to see what Rand Paul does and how he does over the coming months, especially with Jeb Bush sucking the financial air out of the room. Next was Governor Walker. He shot up 3 or 4 places from last year at 21.4%. He did a good job at the CPAC convention. He had one little thing that the press jumped on him about. He's compared the union laborers of his state to the Islamic terrorists in the Islamic State, saying, if I can deal with 100,000 union people, I can deal with these terrorists. So he took a little bit of heat for that. I don't know. I don't think it was a good comparison, but it was funny. Third place, Senator Ted Cruz, dropping down 11.5%. Up quite a bit, 11.4%. Fourth place, Dr. Ben Carson. I like Ted Cruz. I think that he is a dynamic speaker. I think that he is young enough and got enough sharp edges on him where he will be a contender for president sometime in the future. I would love to see him become the governor of Texas. That would be awesome because, in my opinion, it would be much easier for him as a former or sitting governor to win the presidency than a sitting senator. But he's just, for most Americans, he seems a little too far out there. That's why I probably like him so much. But nevertheless, he came in third place. Right behind him, the pensive, the thoughtful, the African-American Dr. Ben Carson. There's a growing number of people that really like him. I just don't think he has the snap to be president. His words are really good. He's very eloquent. But for me, he lacks that overarching inspiration. Scott Walker inspires you when he talks. Rand Paul inspires you when he talks. Ted Cruz inspires you when he talks. Ben Carson, his words, if they were on a piece of paper, would be inspirational. But the delivery, at least for me, it needs to be ratcheted up just a little bit. And then, fifth place, he was greeted by boos. We'll talk about him when we come back. Please, not this man.
Hey, everyone's been asking me, when's Unstoppable coming out on DVD? Well, it's here. And I have created my own deluxe signature version of Unstoppable that contains not only the movie, but over 5 hours of additional curriculum and study guides for your family. It's perfect for your homeschool, educational facility, small group Bible study, and family devotions. And I'm going to share with you some of the spiritual warfare that surrounded the release of this film. This box set also includes extended scenes, new music videos, the inside scoop on the whole Facebook controversy. So what are you waiting for? I made this special version with my family in mind, and I know your family will be blessed by it too. Unstoppable 2.0 Deluxe Signature Version, available only here at kurtcameron.com. I can't wait for you to experience what's inside.
I have been a leader in the pro-life movement for 30 years. And sadly, we have not prevailed in our goal to make it a criminal act to kill an unborn baby. There's reasons why we have failed. I wrote this book, A Humble Plea, to Catholic bishops, to evangelical clergy, and to lay people, explaining where we went wrong and what we have to do to prevail. We've made this available as a PDF online for free. I encourage you to go and download your own copy. Well, he wasn't actually greeted by boos, but he was booed when he brought up his take on illegal immigrants and amnesty. And of course, I'm speaking about former Governor Jeb Bush. Jeb Bush, who refused to take the pledge for no new taxes. That got him a little bit of bad press as well. His spokesman said he never signed any pledges for any activist or lobby group, and he's not going to start now. He doesn't have to sign a pledge. He could just say, I will not raise taxes. Why didn't he do that? But I digress. Jeb Bush came in fifth place with 8.3% of the vote. He knew going in that he would be facing a predominantly hostile crowd. Last year, he decided to not even go to CPAC. And I think when the straw poll came out, he was 3% or less, might have been 1 or 2%. His contention was, I'm not interested at that at this point. I haven't decided if I'm going to run. Now he's decided, so he had to go. It's part of the dance. And his point was to show his courage. I'm going right in there. I am conservative. I have a conservative record as governor of the state of Florida, and I can do this. Let me speak plainly, if I may. Jeb Bush is part of the moneyed class. He is part of the aristocracy of the Republican Party. He is part of that regime of people that, from all that I have seen in my 30 plus years of being active in the political process, that they're not concerned about the average person. It doesn't wake them up in the night or trouble them in the morning about babies being butchered. Some of them were pushing Ronald Reagan to create these free trade deals and most favored nation status with China under Clinton, so that their stock would go up and so that they could get the cost of labor down. Many of these Republicans have been pushing John Boehner and Mitch McConnell, especially McConnell, to allow Obama's illegal amnesty to stand, because they, as the Chamber of Commerce leaders, need cheap, legal labor. For a long time, there were a lot of people who were knowingly employing people, illegal immigrants, people who didn't have a social security number, people they weren't sure whether or not these are legal immigrants or not. They were employing them. But then the federal government and state government started to crack down a little bit. And so some of the big businesses, many of them run by Republicans, said, look, we need labor. We need inexpensive labor, and these people can provide it for us. So let's figure out a way to get them into the stream of legality. They're not concerned about us. They help send. I'm going down a rabbit trail, but I want you to grasp the seriousness of it. I grew up in Rochester, New York. I spent 20 years after that in Binghamton, New York. So about 20 years in Rochester, New York, 20 years in Binghamton, New York. Rochester, New York was in the top 20 cities that the Nazis intended to bomb if they could get to the United States. Because IBM was there, Kodak was there, Bausch and Lomb was there, Xerox was there. In Binghamton, IBM was there. The world's largest shoe manufacturing plant, Endicott Johnson, was in Binghamton, New York. Savin Copiers was there. This long, proud tradition of manufacturing in Rochester and in Binghamton, New York. Smith Corona typewriters just outside of Binghamton. The flight simulator company, their name escapes me now. They were in Binghamton. One by one, these companies have closed their doors or laid off enormous amounts of people and moved their headquarters or their manufacturing to other places. Savin Copiers is gone. Smith Corona typewriters went to Mexico. I don't even know if they're still in business anymore. Endicott Johnson, employing 10,000 people, gone. The jobs went to Brazil, South America, went to the Pacific Rim. Kodak, a huge, huge plant in Rochester, New York. They've literally bombed it. They have demolished huge buildings. And it's just barren, like it kind of resembles areas of Detroit. A barren production wasteland. Xerox has had to cut back. In Binghamton, IBM used to have 3 major plants there, and they're all but gone now, having shipped jobs to other states and overseas. This is in part the legacy of that moneyed class from the Democratic side of the aisle and the Republican side of the aisle. The guys who jab each other and tease each other about who's got the biggest private jet, or how many private jets they own, or how many properties they own in the United States or overseas or in Central America. These are people who, as I said, they're not vexed in their soul about marriage. They're not vexed about babies being butchered. They're not worried about the decimation of America's working class. They're trying to get cheap labor in from Mexico. I know I'm painting with a broad brush, and I know that there are people who are wealthy and who do not fit this bill. And to them, I tip their hat, my hat rather. I don't know enough of the rich elite to be able to say good witch, bad witch. I know that the people at Interstate Battery are believers, for example. I know that Dave, the owner of Wendy's, was a believer. So I know that I'm painting with a little bit of a broad brush, but this I can tell you for sure, that when the wealthy, Republican, moneyed people of Wall Street get together and raise millions of dollars for Jeb Bush right out of the chute, they're not interested in ideology. They're interested in their money. And they're interested in getting a president into the White House who's going to manage the economic affairs at the highest level, Wall Street money, taxes. They're interested in getting someone in like Jeb Bush, who's one of them. They don't want a renegade like Rand Paul. They don't want a renegade like Scott Walker. They didn't want a renegade like Ronald Reagan. But the people of the country did. And so my hope, my prayer, is that we will not be fooled again. That we will not allow the moneyed class of the Republican Party to buy the next Republican nominee. Please, God, save us from our friends. One of the greatest joys and passions that I have had for almost my entire life is music. And one of the best times that I had was putting together some albums in Nashville of songs that I wrote. One of the albums is called Dark Sunglasses Day. This is a country album, a lot of love songs and patriotic music. We've made it available to you online, and I hope that you'll go take a listen. You might be pleasantly surprised. You might even find yourself singing along. It took me 14 years to write it. 4 rewrites, countless edits. I poured my heart and soul into Dragon Slayers. At points a very inspiring and painful book to write. I encourage you to go to our website and look at the reviews that we have gotten from readers of this book, and then avail yourself. It's an allegory, and I promise you, you'll be inspired. One more point about Jeb Bush to make my point. I was on the ground fighting for Terri Schiavo's life in 2003 and in 2005. A large part of the reason why Terri Schiavo did not die in obscurity in 2003 is because yours truly, me, I was contacted by the Schindler family, and they asked me to do whatever I could. And Bob Schindler, the dad, said, "Randy, I give you carte blanche. Do whatever you want." And you can read it in their book, all right, if you want to know the role that I played. So we fought for her in 2003, created a firestorm, got a meeting with the family and Jeb Bush. I told Susie, the sister said, "You're going to pick up the phone, you're going to call Governor Bush, he's going to be in there, and you're going to say, 'We want to meet with you or we're going to protest.'" She said, "I can't do it." I said, "Trust me, he will meet with you." We met with him, and it became clear in 2003 and again in 2005 that he did not have a backbone to save this woman. He could have saved her. He had ambulances sitting around the corner, a few blocks away, just engines running, and he didn't have the guts to give the order to send them in and to take them out. Because of a little tin pot judge, Judge Greer, a godless, enemy of life judge who defied federal courts, defied Congress. I mean, the president was involved. If you look back at the history of that, it was an incredible loss, this poor woman's life. And Jeb Bush was there and didn't do anything. That's why I have such a visceral mistrust, even a contempt for this man. And when a person is a governor, you have to look at what they've done to save babies from murder. And I was a Florida resident for 5 years. Jeb Bush didn't do much, okay? Just telling you what his legacy is. Enough said about Jeb Bush. Let's continue on quickly through this list. Senator Rick Santorum, 4.3% in 6th place. Senator Marco Rubio, 3.7. Donald Trump, 3.5. He says he's more interested than ever in running. He's not fooling around. He's not just flirting. He's really considering it because he doesn't want an establishment person to get the nomination. I promise you this, Donald Trump would not be an establishment person. He'd look at people, "You're fired. You're fired." Wouldn't that be fun to see a showdown between him and the Supreme Court? You have to wonder what he would do. Carly Fione ran for the U.S. Senate in 2010 in California. She was there. She got 3% of the vote. Governor Chris Christie, bottoming out, 2.8%. I'm so happy. He was the Republican favorite, the establishment favorite last year, okay? Now the flavor is Jeb Bush. Chris Christie, the other establishment guy, man, he is not doing well. Former Governor Rick Perry, 1.1%. He was there. I'm glad that he's running again. Let's see what kind of money he can raise. Governor Bobby Jindal, under 1%. Former Governor Sarah Palin, under 1%. Former Governor Mike Huckabee, under 0.5%. And then from there, former Ambassador John Bolton, you see these numbers, Senator Lindsey Graham, former Governor George Pataki. George Pataki is an enemy of all that is true and just and right. I lived in New York State, ran for political office in New York State when he was the governor there. This man is a baby-killing, treacherous Catholic. He is he is an evildoer, as the Bible calls him. Lindsey Graham, a squish. Part of the worst elements of the Republican Party is Lindsey Graham, deserving of all of our contempt. All right, I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, could it be true? Could it be true that President Obama threatened to shoot down the military jets of the Israeli Air Force? Does God judge nations? If so, why? What does his judgment look like? And is America under the judgment of God? I answer these questions and many others using the scriptures in my book called The Judgment of God. I encourage you to go to our website and download your own PDF and study the scriptures on the judgment of God. We have put together what we call an online university for you. Now that's a highfalutin way of saying that we have a pretty significant library of material, books, tapes, videos that are there for you for free. Why are we doing this? Because America is desperate for new leaders, and because this material could help you to become the leader that you and God want you to be. Check it out and enjoy it. Well, a Kuwaiti newspaper is quoting an Israeli diplomat, somebody fairly high up in the Israeli government who has ongoing interaction with the U.S. government, has stating that he told John Kerry, Secretary of State, in 2014 that the Israelis were training and had a plan to fly into Iran and to destroy various nuclear facilities in order to keep the Iranians from obtaining nuclear weapons. The Israeli government was informed, because they have to fly over Iraqi airspace, and because the U.S. still controls aspects of Iraqi airspace, that should the Israelis attempt such a mission, that the United States government would shoot down their jets. Is it true? I don't know. Former security advisor to Jimmy Carter, Brzezinski, remember him? He said in 2009, after President Obama was elected, he urged the president to make it crystal clear to the Israelis, if they fly over Iraqi airspace, tell them we will shoot down their jets. Tell them we will not let them bomb Iranian nuclear facilities. And if they try to fly over Iraq, we will shoot them down. He said this publicly, okay? So it's not a secret that there are people who have either served in the U.S. government or are serving in the U.S. government. It's not a secret that they would consider doing this. Now, as you know, Prime Minister Netanyahu is here in America right now, and we will analyze aspects of his speech in the next day or two on this program. But let me close out the show by making this point. Iran has undeniable contacts and funding of terrorists. Contacts with and funding of terrorists. They train Hezbollah. They arm Hezbollah. They fund Hamas. And they hold up the puppet regime in Syria. And they're spreading their tentacles into Iraq. All right? This is a terrorist regime. They are state sponsors of terrorism, according to the State Department. And Obama's people are putting the deal in place to allow them to obtain nuclear weapons. You see what they've done with their weapons when they give them to Hezbollah. What do you think Iran will do if it gets a nuclear bomb?